Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into another one. This one, we're going to be talking about the unraveling of mysteries of marketing. We're going to explore the psychology behind decision making and discover the power of simplicity in messaging. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. There we go. All right, Business Bros. We brought a thought-provoking guest with us today, a marketing entrepreneur, educator, and author. He's on a mission to uncover the secrets behind why we make the decisions we do and how simplicity plays a pivotal role in marketing. So in this episode, we're going to dive into the fascinating world of marketing, decision-making, psychology, and entrepreneurship. With his extensive experience running successful marketing agencies and educating aspiring professionals, that this has given him such a unique insight in the power of clear and concise messaging. I'm excited to get this one started. So let's get this going. Welcome to the show, Mr. Ben Guttmann. All right, Ben, welcome to the program, man.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I got to admit, I'm a little thrown off again at the beginning, because this is the first time that our system has allowed us to stream live to Instagram. So while I'm getting the show started, I'm also like making sure I hit the right spot for Instagram to go live for the first time. So thank you for that little hurdle, but welcome to the show, man.
No worries. Looks all good.
All right, dude, let's do this thing. First question I always ask is the most obvious one. Everybody who comes on the show is here to promote something, to get something to the audience out there. What is that for you? What is it that you do that makes you money?
Well, I do a number of different kind of consulting projects. I teach. I've got a lot of different hats. But right now, the big thing is my book just came out called Simply Put, Why Clear Messages Win and How to Design Them. Came out from Barrett Colder Publishers earlier this year, back in October. And I've been really just overjoyed with seeing people read it, enjoy it, share it. And, I'm happy to talk about it here today.
Heck yeah, dude. Simply put, I think that's easier said than done. But I think we all strive to kind of get that clarity in our messaging. Who's the book for? Who's the target audience? Who's best suited to read Simply Put?
So this is going to live on the marketing shelf of the bookstore, of the library, of wherever. But it certainly is for anybody who touches marketing even tangentially, right? So I believe, and I ran a marketing agency for 10 years, I believe that we're all marketers in many ways, right? We all have some thing we want to convince people of, something we want people to do. Maybe we're running a business or a family or teaching or whatever it is. And this is going to be, the lessons within this book are going to be something that's useful to all of those different activities. So again, while it'll be really great for people who are working at a marketing agency or something like that, it will still be super useful if you're any sort of leader, entrepreneur, executive, faith leader, advocate, any of those things. This is going to be applicable.
Yeah, we're salespeople through and through, whether we like to actually sell a product or service. Sometimes we got to sell ourselves. Sometimes I tell my students all the time, you got to sell your parents, right? You want to go to that party. You got to give them reasons why it's beneficial for them and for you to go out and go do that thing. So yeah, clear messaging is definitely a tough thing. Tell me a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get here where now you're an expert in this field? You put the book together. What was that educational journey like for you?
So I went to Baruch College here in New York City, which is also where I teach right now too, as a part-time adjunct. But when I was there, I was the big kind of like student government dork. I was the president of my senior class, all sorts of fun stuff. But I didn't do any of the internships. I didn't do any of the stuff I probably should have done to kind of get ready for a traditional career. Luckily, I had a professor who ran a marketing agency, came up to me one day after class and said, I know you kind of want to maybe start something. We need some help with digital. Maybe we can figure something out. And so one thing led to another, and we drive up my, kind of creaky 94 Honda Accord. We drive up to Westchester, just north of the city here, slap our logo on the wall of their basement, set up shop, and we do a little bit of work with them, but really we're too young and naive to really know what we're doing. They were working at Fortune 500 clients, so we cut our teeth with the local ice cream shop and the local camera shop and like these smaller businesses, and bit by bit we began to build into slightly larger clients and slightly bigger projects and slightly bigger brands, and eventually we moved out of the basement. We got an office here in Queens. We hired some employees. We got a bigger office, hired more employees, and by the end of it, we 10 years later, we were working with brands like the NFL and Comcast and I Love New York and these really wonderful clients. And so that's where I was about almost 2 years ago at this point. And we woke up and said, hey, you know what? We did this for the last 10 years. Do we want to do it for the next 10 years? And, me and my partner, we decided to sell the company. And it was a ton of fun. We had a really great, again, book of business, and we were profitable. All the things were good. It's just that when you do something like that for so long, in the first chapter of your career, you kind of want to start to explore other things. And so we sold the company. Since then, I've been doing some independent consulting and leadership work. I've been teaching, as I mentioned before. I've done that for a long time. And then I wrote the book. And this is kind of the big project for me over the past year. And it's been really exciting to kind of share some of the lessons that I learned, some of the lessons that I researched in this project.
Dude, and let me commend you for that exit, because it's like every entrepreneur's dream to come in and have an exit strategy. Not everybody is going to sell, but everybody wants to be able to exit their business at some point. And I don't think you really think about exiting when you first get into this space. But take me back to when you're first starting out. You go and slap your logo on a building. You're too young. Don't really know what they're doing, but you have a vision, you have a dream, you have some sort of ambition where you're going somewhere. If you could go take yourself back to that spot, if you can give yourself some advice, because there's people who are in that position today. They're going to Canva, they're getting their logo together, they're slapping it on the landing page, but they're young too. They don't know what they're doing, man. What advice would you give them?
Oh boy, there's a lot of it, right? So first of all, I would say, do it. If you're on the fence about doing it, do it, because when you're young, when you're 22, 23, right out of college, you don't have really, statistically, and everybody individually is different, but on average, you don't have much to lose, right? You're used to not making any money. You're used to being a college student. You don't have a spouse or kids or a pet or a mortgage or ailing parents. Again, on average, everybody's situation is unique, but you have the least amount of risk to start something at that point. And it only gets harder as you go. And this doesn't mean you can't start something 10 years in or 20 or 30 years in, but it just becomes a little bit more difficult to do that. So number one is to do that. Number two, I would say, is to consider the world to be more malleable than it looks. When you start out, and this is partially when you're young in general, and also before you ever kind of start a business, you look at the world and the structures that are there as it is built. This is it. These are the big companies. This is the big brand. That's a big shot person. And we think that this is just how things are. And it's impossible to kind of make a dent in that. But you can change all the conditions around you by putting in effort, by being lucky. You get luck by putting in effort, and the things that you in the beginning might think are kind of immovable objects will seem a lot more malleable, a lot more changeable later on because of that. And then there's a million tactical things I can say too, right? But like putting those kind of mindset shifts in place will kind of pay dividends throughout the entire process.
Let's talk a little bit about the scalability part, because sometimes we have that ambition, sometimes we have that drive, and we're growing up a lot of young entrepreneurs today in that hustle and grind culture. But it doesn't always necessarily mean success. It doesn't necessarily mean you develop something that somebody wants to buy and you actually have an opportunity to exit on. What are some of those things that you feel, as you've been doing consulting, as you had your own exit, as you had your own fumbles, mistakes, and lessons that you learned along the way? What are some of those things that maybe an entrepreneur can avoid when building a business so that they can exit at some point?
So there's basically, I'll tell you from my business, from my industry, marketing, there's basically two major paths that you can do when you're starting a business kind of like this. You can go out and say, I want to go work with big brands and cool companies, and I want to get, some big high ticket things and get some awards and that type of stuff. And that is a great path. That's kind of largely what we ended up doing. It's a harder business to run though. It's very much, you're kind of always chasing something. You're always at the whims of the market. It's a little harder to kind of develop a brand for yourself and specialize appropriately and all that stuff. But it's the more kind of like sexy alternative. The other like end of the spectrum of that is you go out and say, I build, just to spitball something here, I build like, I do SEO audits of like doctor web pages, of like doctor office websites. Okay, that's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's very clear what your offer is, who your audience is, and how you can scale that. And it's, you're not going out being like, wooing anybody on a date by saying, I do this great SEO audits for doctors. But all of a sudden, how to reach, okay, I can join this, I can go to this conference and all the doctors are going to be there. I can write an article in this publication and all the doctors are going to see. I can pay for an ad in this Instagram, account that all the doctors follow. And it's an easier company to run. And then on terms of acquiring stuff. And then when you're running it, you say, hey, I have a playbook. This is how we do it for doctor offices. And like, we do this thing every single time. And you can get people who might be a little more junior, maybe they're offshore, to execute it at a lower cost than if you were kind of chasing, saying, hey, I want to go work with Nike and Google and that type of stuff. So there's two paths to it. One isn't better than the other one. The first one is harder. It's got kind of like, the bright lights of Broadway, it's got a lot of kind of sexiness and appeal to it. But the other one is probably a better business. And I see a lot of times people maybe kind of in their like second business will do something like that, where they're saying, this isn't the thing that's putting me on the cover of some magazine somewhere, but it is the thing that is going to make me a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think after a while, you kind of realize the time and effort that it takes for the return. You start to look at your investments as an entrepreneur a little bit differently once you go all in, right? Once you go all in and you're like, okay, now this is the whole thing. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm spending all my time. How do I free up some of this time? And let me ask you about some of the lessons that you made to learn. I feel like it doesn't matter what entrepreneur you talk to. At some point, there's something that happens in their entrepreneurial journey, a pivotal point, a turning point, something that happens that changes their perspective or changes the direction of their company. What would you feel is that for you and your company?
Good question. So I'll give you kind of two things that come to mind. I don't know if they are the pivotal moment, but there are things that certainly help. One of them is more recent. It's something I wish I did when I was still running the agency instead of afterwards, which is doing more things like this, right? Like kind of putting myself out there and doing, if it's a podcast, if it's the book, if it's writing an article somewhere, if it's doing all these kind of thought leadership, that's like a weird kind of term always, but like doing that universe of things, because it's an exceptional way to get better at what you're doing, as well as to kind of build that top of the funnel and to kind of meet new people. And so now I'm doing it, and I do consulting work, I do speaking work, and so certainly there's benefit from doing it. But I'm largely doing it because, hey, I have this great stuff I want to share and I want to get people out there. If I had an agency, it would be really good, next step. Someone hears me on a show like this, or they read the book, and it's a very clear next step of, hey, you go and work with my old shop, right? So I, in some ways, wish I was doing this exact type of conversation 5 years ago instead of doing it today. And so I would tell anybody that if they're looking to kind of level up in what they're doing, especially if it's like professional services, but it is applicable to a lot of types of business, get really good about talking about your business, about sharing about your business. And if that, so become a really good writer, become a really good speaker, become somebody who's comfortable maybe with design and networking and a few of these other skills. And that in and of itself is a benefit. In the business, a turning point that we had was when we started to look at because we were a full service digital marketing agency. We do social media, branding, email, but also websites, mobile apps, kiosks, those type of things. When we started to look and say, how can we build recurring revenue off of the projects that we did? And so if that's a website, it is like a maintenance contract, something like that. That was a pretty pivotal moment in terms of how making our books look a lot more attractive, where all of a sudden, instead of hunting down that project and then doing it and then hunting the next one and doing it, they start to accumulate instead of kind of passing through. And we would do it. Sometimes these retainers would be 5 figures a month. and sometimes they be 3 figures a month, be a few $100s. We're not making money really off of the $300 a month contract that somebody's signing with us to do hosting somewhere. But what happens there is, number one, is we're going to do half of those things anyway if it's a maintenance project, because we're just, we were a bunch of softies or nice guys who, like, if some old client came by and said, hey, this is broken, half the time we're just going to fix it. So at least we're getting compensated for it. And then number two was, okay, well, now we stay in their universe, because if they want to have another update in a year, if they have a friend that they know who has another company who needs something, well, all of a sudden we're top of mind because we're still kind of present with them. So they're going to say, oh, we have these really good guys at their website, go work with digital natives. So even if it wasn't super profitable in the actual item, it was something that was worthwhile for us to do, because it was just a good thing all around.
Yeah, that and I like how you said that about your books, especially when you're looking at selling. That recurring revenue stream is very important because it helps float a lot of that overhead. It might not be, huge profit margins, but to have that consistent cash flow coming in, it definitely does look good on the books. And again, I'm going to second that. The relationships is really where the key is at. And if I've talked to, this is episode 1279, I've talked to over 1,000 entrepreneurs, and the ones who are exit almost always say the same thing you just said. That relationship is really where the value's at. It's really where you get that next deal. It's where that reputation comes in. It's where your credibility comes in. It's what successful businesses really capitalize on. It's that relationship with that customer. And I think it's definitely adding to that, which kind of brings me to my next question, which is, there's different books that are similar to yours. There's different consultings that are similar to yours, but there's a reason why your customers come to you. There's a reason why they refer business to you, and they want to read your book. What is that? What do you feel it is that makes you different, that puts you above the rest, that makes you that choice for your clients?
Yeah, I'll give you answers that are going to be one answer for agency world and one answer for the book stuff. Agency stuff, we had a goal where a lot of times you have weekly meetings with clients. We wanted our meeting of the client to be their favorite meeting of the week. Right? We wanted to be so, everybody wants to do good work. Everybody wants to be on time, but sometimes those things get screwed up a little bit for whatever reason, but you can always control how you react and how engaging you are and how much you are enjoyable to be around. So we always wanted to be, the genuine friends and partners with the people we work with. Because a lot of times people have all these vendor meetings. They're like, oh, I got to deal with this guy and this guy. And I want them to look and say, oh, I got Ben on my calendar. I got the whole, digital natives team, my old agency. I got there. I am looking forward to that one. So that's number one, is to try to maintain those relationships. Because as you were just saying, that's the most important piece. And then for the book, to be honest, I wanted to write a book that I would be excited to read and kind of proud to read. I'm not going to name any names or kind of shitting on poo-pooing anybody, but a lot of business books are not great, right? A lot of them are quick, kind of dashed off, and maybe nothing's wrong with self-publishing. I know plenty of people that have done it. Maybe they just quickly dashed it off and popped it up on a Kindle thing to say that they wrote a book, right? I didn't want that. I wanted something that was science-backed, that was heavily researched, that was going to be something that was less war stories about how great I am or anything, and more just like this is the genuine science about how to become a better communicator and how to become a better marketer, by being a better communicator. So that's what I wanted here, and I wanted this to be something that would be genuinely useful, not just a business card.
There's something unique about writing a book that you hear about it, but when you go through it, it's a whole different thing. And that's the number of times you get your stuff edited. You write it, you read it, you make a change, you write it, you read it, you make a change, you send it to an editor, then you make more changes, they send it back, you test it. It's just a constant iterations of changing and improvements to make yourself better. And I feel that's how it works with a lot of marketing campaigns. That's how businesses kind of grow. They're trying to find different iterations of what works for them. What do you feel drives that kind of room for improvement? And it got you to a point where you sold your business, got you to a point where you've written a book that is well researched, there's a lot of passion behind what you do. How do you continue to fine tune and improve upon what you're doing?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of flattery there. I appreciate that. But so thoughts, a couple thoughts on writing a book in general that might touch upon that. Number one is people are like, oh my God, how do you write the whole book? You know, I can never write a whole book. You don't ever write a whole book. You write you write a sentence, you write a paragraph, you write a section. You never are really sitting down and writing a 40,000 word or 60,000 word book. You're just doing that piece of it. So it doesn't feel in the moment as if you're ever doing a really big thing. It feels like you're doing many, many small things that add up to kind of the big thing. And on that note is because of how you write an outline, and so you write a thesis, then you write an outline, then you get more detailed in the outline, and then eventually you kind of pick that section. And I go to the coffee shop and I write write a few hundred words, and that was that section. And then maybe pick another one in a different chapter and I write that piece. And as it comes together, and eventually you start going through that editing and that refinement, you kind of have this healthy remove where if you write something right now and you have to go back and edit it in 30 minutes, that's still you that wrote the previous thing. But if you have to edit it in 30 days or in 6 months, because I mean, the process is a year and a half long, that's a different person. That's old you. And so if that person doesn't exist anymore, it's okay if I tear apart their work. Like that's, that was fine. So it gives you that ability to have a little bit of perspective on it. But what, you asked a little bit, I think, about why it's important. Well, you only get so many cracks at doing anything. I mean, you want to try a lot and kind of put stuff out there because quantity a lot of times helps quality. But I didn't want to write a book and just have something out there that was kind of like half-assed and whatever it was. I didn't want to build a company and not be proud of the work that was going out there, because it's like the old kind of refrain, I think it was Ben Franklin, which is a reputation takes a lifetime to build, like a minute to squander or something. You have to always be working on stuff to a high level of quality. Otherwise, because as soon as you get that kind of low level of quality stuff out there, it will tarnish everything else that you do.
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does. When you first started your agency, I wonder if you had that vision to exit, if you saw yourself doing this for a long time, or if you saw what the end would look like. Eventually you did, because you finally did get it sold. But now you're in a new phase. You have a book. Now you're consulting. What's the vision like as far as growth from here going on to the future? And how does it compare to the first time you were running your business?
Well, I still have no idea what I want to be when I grow up, right? I mean, I've been doing, I ran that business for 10 years. I've been consulting now for almost, a year and a half or so, 2 years. And it's been fun. I really enjoy it. I've got some great clients that I work with, and there's been really wonderful opportunity as part of that. Do I want to do this forever? No, just the same way I didn't want to do the agency forever. I think that it's maybe it's a generational, it's the millennial thing, right? Like we don't want to do one thing for our whole careers. Where does it go from here? I have no idea, right? I mean, and you kind of do it day by day, and year by year, they start to add up. I try to be conscious of the fact of kind of time passing, and you always want to be proactive and working on something. But I'm enjoying, after 10 years of kind of being heads down doing one big thing, having a little bit of the kind of portfolio life right now, where you're doing a few different little things at the same time.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, that's the time freedom we're looking for, right? I mean, you got into business because you wanted financial freedom, you wanted time freedom. And the path that we end up taking always kind of tends to vary, but we end up finding our kind of our happy time, our freedom. And then we realize, oh shit, I actually do need a little bit of purpose in my life. Let me find some other project to dump my beak into, and let's go. Let's put the nose to the grindstone. Let's start doing things. If people want to reach out to you, Ben, if they're like, look, this guy, he understands. He exited. He's got his own thing going on right now. He's sharing with us all the pearls of wisdom. I want to get a copy of that book. How can they get a hold of you? Get a copy of the book? How can they do that?
Oh, well, that would be very flattering. I appreciate it. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to benguttmann.com. It's not a good name for radio. There's 2 T's and 2 N's. So benguttmann.com. If you go there, you'll get, I have all the stuff about me that you could ever want, and then some, including a free chapter of the book. If you're interested, go grab that. And I send an email out every Tuesday. That's just a small newsletter, and that's for free. Go grab that as well. Alternatively, connect with me on LinkedIn, grab the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. And, again, if there's anything I can do to help you or somebody has a question, please just reach out. I'd love to talk to anybody.
Appreciate it, Ben. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, look, there's people that already have done what you want to do 100%. You just got to be able to find them. And one of the ways you can do that, if you don't want to talk to them in person, is to pick up their book, because they're literally sharing all their personal wisdom right there on the pages. And then if you got a little bit of guts, you can reach out to the authors themselves or the consultants themselves, just like Ben, and figure out if this is a next step for you. BenGuttmann.com is his website, scrolling across the bottom. BenGuttmann.com. That's 2 T's and 2 N's. Make sure you guys put that in the URL, or you might find somebody else. Ben, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.com